Hello, welcome to the Kindness Podcast. I am so happy that you're here. This is the Kindness Podcast live. So you can go to NPR or iTunes or Google Play or wherever you find your favorite podcasts, and you can listen to, 100 or so Kindness podcasts with lots of really, really interesting people. But we decided for the month of May, since I'm kind of home instead of traveling around speaking, that we would do some really special interviews live from my office, otherwise known as the bedroom in the house that belongs to me. So I want to introduce you to somebody who has made a really big impact on my life. And every time I talk about it, I get a little weepy. I guess COVID makes me like melancholy or something, but she wrote a book, came up with a concept and wrote a book back in 2006. And that has stemmed into really a cultural movement. And so I want to introduce you to Carol McCloud, who is the author of Have You Filled a Bucket Today? And several other amazing books. But hi, Carol.
Hi, how are you, Nicole? Nice to meet you.
I'm so delighted to talk with you.
Well, I feel the same way, totally. Bucket overflowing for sure. It's an honor to be here.
That's it.
That's the feeling.
I have a couple of your sweet books. This one, when my son was in kindergarten, my youngest son, who's in 4th grade, when he was in kindergarten, I did a kindergarten kindness segment every week in his class. So we use this. And then this, I loved. I opened it up today to look at it again, just in prep. And I wrote, I won't be able to see this, but I wrote my son's name, Charlie Phillips.
Yep, I see it.
And then below it, if you can see the little pencil marks, that's where he wrote his name.
Oh, I love it. Isn't that the cutest?
Charlie is now going to be a freshman in high school. So that's how long we've been trying to be bucket fillers in our household. And so that's why this is just so special to me.
Well, it really ties in with your work, that's for sure. You know, it's just such a concrete, easy idea for kids that they get it so early in life. And that's one of the things I love about bucket filling, because they see it and they understand that what they do affects other people, and that when they're kind to someone else and make them happy, guess what? They get happy too. So
it comes back to us. Exactly.
Yeah, it comes back to us. Yeah, it really does.
So we are sponsored today by the Verona Senior Center, which is in Verona, Wisconsin. And so you being in Florida, just send some sunshine to them, because they, I believe, had a bit of snow maybe this weekend.
Oh, no. I will be happy to do that. So my dad is in a senior living facility too. So I'm always shining light over them so that they all stay safe too. So my dad's 99 years old now, and he's doing really well through this. I talk to him every day, of course, but I don't get to see him. Yeah. So it's really a change, but he's well, he really is. But I just shine that light. So I'll be shining it over at Verona too, because those sweet people who are locked down, it's not easy. So just be well.
That's so great of you. So for everyone who is here, who is watching, I want you to chime in, because of course I want to know what your questions are for Carol. And sometimes it's just fun to do like a little roll call of what's going on. So I'm gonna pop this guy off for a second so we can take a look at some of the comments that are already coming. And Sandra says hello. And
hello. Oh yeah, Sandy in my office. Hi, Sandy. She loves you, Nicole. So you're her inspiration, on those days where we just need a little inspiration. So, and that's how I heard about you, was from Sandy. So hi, Sandy.
Thank you. The Verona Senior Center says hi.
Hi. Hey, good morning. I hope your buckets are full today.
Yeah, Lisa says it is Tuesday, right? Lisa, I have no idea what day it is. It just doesn't matter. She says, good morning, happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, right?
I think it is Tuesday. Yes. I don't think we keep track anymore, because we're not on the same schedule as we were on a few months ago.
That's right. That's
exactly right. Mm-hmm. But
and this is my mom, who lives in Vero Beach, Florida.
Well, what do you know? She's across the state from me. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
So
and I
hi,
think that
Jean.
happens to
Hi,
her.
Jean. Where she is. I'm sure you celebrated mom via telephone or Skype or one of those things. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. One of the groups we
So
sponsor had a Mother's Day parade, and they actually went around to all their moms with the cars and Happy Mother's Day. And these were actually moms, many of them who just needed a little help because they needed help during their pregnancy and weren't sure they could become moms. And so now they're, fine and doing well and doing the biggest job in the world, being moms. So they had a parade to all of them. I thought that was a fabulous idea for the moms.
yeah, that's a fabulous
Yeah.
idea.
Mhm.
So, Carol, you did initially, when we started this conversation, talk about what it means to be a bucket filler. But for people who are just
Mhm.
now chiming in a little bit, would you mind, for someone who has not read your book,
Yes.
would you mind telling what's the concept? What's the give and take behind being a bucket filler?
Well, I have to tell you, this is really different for me because when I first had the idea and wanted to share the concept, I was like, well, how do I do that? And I taught it in school and I thought, well, a book is a great way to teach a concept, but it's not the only way. You can do it through video, you can do it through talking to people. So it's just different. So a book is one way and it's traveled far and reached a lot of people, but this actually is just as good. It's just that wasn't the world that I was operating in at that
Mhm.
time. So I teach it to hotel clerks, to kids in the grocery store, to anybody, whether I have a minute or 5 minutes or 20 minutes or an 8-hour professional development training. And kids really get it right away, even without showing them, such as my bucket. So here's my bucket right here. And as you can see, my bucket is green, my favorite color, because I believe if we could make our own buckets, mine would be green. And it has big eyes. Oops, I can't turn this right.
Yep.
Because I notice people, and a bucket filler notices people. But um, and I have a big smile on my face because my bucket is very full today. It's full of all this love and happiness and good thoughts and feelings. So the idea is is that everyone has an invisible bucket. I didn't learn about mine till I was in my 40s at a teacher conference, but now kids are learning about it in kindergarten. And we really do have invisible buckets. And when our buckets are full, we're having a good day. We're happy. Things are going good. And everything that's happened is actually in your bucket. Those are your happy memories, the things you don't even remember that happened before you were of memory age, like mommy and daddy and grandma and grandpa kissing you and loving you and taking care of you. Those are etched in your little brain, which is what your bucket actually kind of represents. All those happy things are still there. So when our buckets are full, we're happy, but when our buckets are empty, and I sometimes turn it around, then guess what? We're not having such a good day. I'm not good at this. So anyways, and so I teach kids that when you fill someone else's bucket by being kind and saying something nice and making them happy, it also fills your bucket too. So they actually get to experience it, which is really the secret. Whether you use that term bucket filling or kindness, it doesn't matter. You want kids to see how good it feels. In fact, one little boy, Nathan, was 7 years old, and I told him about his bucket, or his grandma did actually. And he said, Grandma, nobody told me I had a bucket till I was 7 years old. He said, don't you think that's a little late in life? And then she said, well, it's better now than never, Nathan. And he says, but guess what? When I'm around you, I can feel my bucket filling up. So I know I have one. And isn't that the truth? It really
Oh,
is. So, I mean, I believe, and I know you believe, I really believe that really you'll never be a happy person unless you're kind. And that's what I really love about kindness and bucket filling. I don't think you could ever be happy. You won't have good relationships. You won't have a happy family. I mean, of all the things that we learn in life, I think that's the most important. And I appreciate that you're spreading that message because we have to teach it so children learn it in some
yeah,
way, or even adults have to learn it if they never have been taught that.
right.
So
It's such
fortunately,
a
you learned it, and
strong,
fortunately, people taught me.
yeah. It is such a strong, tangible concept. It's right there. So
Hmm.
I'm curious about how you originally came up with this concept, and I'm wondering, did it just, was it an overnight success?
Well, I actually heard the concept at a teachers conference back in the 1990s. And I was in Tallahassee, Florida, and brain research experts, neurologists, were presenting us research on Romanian orphans. And these were babies that were institutionalized from the time they were born. and the outside world didn't discover it until like 1989. So this research in the early 1990s was how deprived they were mentally and emotionally because nobody held them and loved them and kissed them. So, and the doctors used the term, their little buckets were never filled. And I wrote that down on my notes, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So what I learned in that session was that children depend on us to be bucket fillers, whether it's the parents, grandparents, early childhood educators, which is what my job was at that time. And so I wrote down, be a bucket filler, fill their buckets every day, because that actually builds kindness roads in their brain and roads of empathy. And then they went on to say, but not only love them and fill their buckets and connect and look in their eyes every day, which is huge for little babies, teach them as soon as they're teachable, even 2s and 3s, how they can fill buckets. So I went back to my little classroom with a little plastic bucket and some pom-poms, and I actually told the children, I said, I never knew we had buckets, and I don't think I've been filling yours as much as I should be filling yours. And so I went around and told every child 1 or 2 things that was special about them to me and how happy I was that they were in my class. And we had what I called a bucket filling class. And truthfully, it was the best year I ever had with children because they just love that. And we would say, well, whose bucket can we fill today? And what are we going to do? And I only filled the classroom bucket when I saw someone doing something that touched my heart, or they shared, or they really worked hard on listening, or they did something kind for someone else. And when our bucket was full in the classroom, we celebrated. And so we had a little kindness bucket filling bucket. And so I knew it worked. I mean, and it works for all ages. It's not just little ones, but the little ones really understand it. And it was a language we just started to use. So fast forward 20 years later, and actually I learned about how important it was how we treat people he wasn't my grandfather, he was my great uncle, because my grandfathers had both passed before I was born. But I had a great uncle and who lived in Chicago, and his name was Uncle Frank. And he taught me, probably even more than my parents, he taught me that the most important thing is how you treat people. And, it's great to get on the honor roll and it's great to make the team or do well. But the most important thing is how you treat people. And we did that together. He would, we used to visit him, and, he did the things that you write about in your books. He was always that kind person. He was the one that would say, hey, do you think we should buy someone's breakfast today? And have a little fun today? I mean, he taught me from the time I was little. And that's when I knew that you can't fill someone else's bucket without filling your own. So it was, so anyways, 20 years later, I was talking to a teacher after a very difficult time. I was working for a newspaper, so we have that in common in our background. And my management job was eliminated in a downsizing. So I was 55 years old. I was out of a job, out of benefits. And I was talking to another teacher, a friend, and I was like, I was shared with her, have you ever used the bucket filling idea in your classroom? Because she was really struggling with her class. And she said, no. And I told her about it. And she said, oh my gosh, that is so great. And so then she said, I wish somebody would write a book about this. Ta-da. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's not a book about this yet. This has been 20 years. So honestly, I went home that night. I got on my computer and I even gave it the title, Have You Filled a Bucket Today? And I was just writing like I would be talking to a 5 or 6 year old. I mean, and I just wrote it as simply as I could in a 1-page little outline. And that was the start of Have You Filled a Bucket Today? So the story gets even more amazing. I don't really believe in coincidences. I just think things happen at the right time, like meeting you, for the right reason. But it was pretty amazing. And I just took a risk and I wasn't sure what would happen, but I knew the concept. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about great writing. It was about the concept of bucket filling. And teachers were looking for a tool, and parents too. And I think it really gave them that tool, this little book that, teachers just loved it. And because it's such a simple, concrete thing that really works, and it makes people happy, and it makes people think about what they say and do. And for that, I am just eternally grateful. So that's how it sort of started.
I try to encourage people whenever I can who have a dream or a thought or I wonder inside of them. Like, get it out, get that I wonder out
Oh, yes,
and give it
totally.
to the world, right? Because
Absolutely. Yes. Do it and write it down. I say them, they think you're special because you're an author. And I'm like, children write every day. I mean, all you do is put words together into sentences. That's all you do. And you have great ideas. And if you have an idea that will help others, you should get it out there however you can get it out there, because that's what people want and need. And then you're using your gifts and you're helping others learn. But I agree. Sometimes we think it's nothing, but actually it is, because who would ever guess, if you just don't take that step or take that risk, because it wasn't, it wasn't like I had ever done this before, nor had you probably. So,
right.
You learn the steps, and honestly, after my book came out, that following June, it was June of 2006, my first book. And the day that it came, I have to tell you this story because actually it's quite a bucket filling story, but it shows you that not everything is easy. And so the day I got 10,000 books or 100 cases of, 100 books in my driveway of my home, which was quite a gamble, actually.
Yep.
So my husband and I lifted all these books and put them in. But, that night my husband was saying he wasn't feeling good and his back was bothering him and he went to bed early. And I have to tell you that he didn't feel better after that. So he went to the doctor. And we found out that he had a tumor on his kidney, and it was a very aggressive tumor. And my husband went through chemo that summer and actually died about 12 weeks later. And so that summer, he wasn't working, I wasn't working. And I have to tell you, it was a bucket filling summer because so many people helped me. My neighbor cut the lawn, my neighbor Ken, my family, my church family, the doctors, the nurses. I mean, I had so many people that filled my bucket then and afterwards. And then after Mike passed, I wrote a letter to our newspaper to thank everyone that helped me during that time, because the hospital was right there in our little town. And I wrote a letter just thanking everyone. And then I wrote newsletters for our bucket fillers. And I wrote that how many people helped me through that very difficult time. And that's really when we want to fill people's buckets, is when they're going through hard times. They never forget it. And I experienced it. I mean, it really, really helped me. And so I wrote a letter to the newspaper. And about 2 weeks later, now it's October of 2006. And it was a cold, rainy night. And I went to the Pope's office to get the mail. And of course, I'm living alone, on my own right now. But I am teaching bucket filling in schools. They immediately wanted sessions and things like that. But I got a package in the mail, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, Thornton Creek Elementary. And I was like, I don't think I've been to that school. And so I opened it up, and in it was 31 letters from third graders, all starting the same. Dear Mrs. McCloud, I'm sorry about your husband. I hope my letter fills your bucket. And I have to tell you that was like, I mean, do you think I ever got rid of those letters?
No, right?
Never.
We're in your house for those letters.
But it was like, I'm experiencing what it is to have your bucket filled by someone else. And so it's very real. I can attest to that. And it really helps you, and it makes you grateful for all the people. And gratitude, as you know, is a huge bucket filler. So that helped me so much. I don't know that I would have done as well had I not had, because when something like that happens, it's not just a little dip in life when someone says something rude. It's like your bucket tips over,
right,
and it spills over, or it drains out, whichever word you want to use. It's very real. And so you really need other people to help you. And also you continue to fill buckets, because that is one of the best ways to get over your really, bad days, from easy, a little bit bad to horrible bad.
We talk about that on the kindness team, on our little team. I have 3 volunteers who help me, beautiful women. And there are times when I will say, I am just in a funk, I'm in a rut, and I'm not mentally in the right spot. And they will remind me, go do an act of kindness, Nicole, like get your eyes off of yourself and put them on somebody else. So I want to pop over here for a second and see if we can't find some comments from people. So let's see. Claire says, what a great idea.
Oh, I
And
hope you use it, Claire. It is a fabulous idea. You will not believe it until you actually try it
yes.
at the level that you're working with. So it doesn't matter. Just make it simple. It's the best.
Yep. And Joyce says, love your bucket.
I love it too.
So cute. And then Lisa says, my littles are also different. Some put others first. Some think they should be first, but they all seem to get this concept of filling someone's bucket. And I really love that. Have you noticed that with kids in other times, you know, that
Oh, yes, totally. She's exactly. I mean, children, we all have different temperaments and different personalities. Some of us are very natural bucket fillers. It's just our personality. We're more outgoing. We jump in people's laps. We run and give them big hugs. And some of us are more reserved, but we all can be great bucket fillers. We all do it in our own way. And some of us are good at math, so it comes easy for us, and some are not. So sometimes we have to work a little harder at it. But I think you want to experience it. You want to know, in other words, not just seeing a role model do something like your mom do it, but you get to experience it. You get to experience the feel good. And when we help our children experience it, then they see how good it feels. And that the desire to be kind to others really helps. And yes, we all have bad days. And when our bucket is empty, it is not easy to be a bucket filler. You have to put an extra effort into it. When we're mad or upset, I mean, it really is a challenge. So there are definitely different levels of bucket filling. You know, we typically have to start off, simple with the little things. But then when we start to do the bigger things that take a little sacrifice or really mean a lot to people, I mean, really, Mother's Day is a good example. It should be every day moms are doing things for us, It's like, but we forget, but at least we have Mother's Day, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the day that they express appreciation. And sometimes we're just too busy to think about it. It doesn't mean we don't appreciate. It's just that we need those opportunities to say, you know what, Mom, you're the best. I don't know what I'd do without you. So.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank the Verona Senior Center again for sponsoring this. We're not done with you yet, Carol, but I just want to
I'm good.
thank you, Verona Senior Center. And if anyone has questions for Carol, please send us a comment and put a question within the comments, and we'll take a look and see what we have there. It looks like we might have a few more. Let's see. Erin says, this is awesome. I just recently did a bucket filling activity with the boys I nanny. We drew pictures of how they would like to fill someone's bucket. Thanks for sharing with us today.
Oh, I love it. Yay. And that's a great activity. It really is. I had one dad tell me one time, he had a special needs son, and he would walk him to school every day. And every day, both of them would talk about whose bucket they were going to fill that day. And it was like, and that parent said that activity just really changed his son. And then when they got home, they would both talk about whose buckets they would fill. Yeah. And I think, sometimes every parent wants the best for their kids. And yet sometimes we think it's about, getting all the awards and getting all the accolades and doing well in school. But really, I think really talking about, did you fill anyone's bucket today? Did anybody fill your bucket? I mean, it's just it makes it important. But if we don't talk about it and we don't do it, then is it really important? Because we sometimes forget what is more important than raising caring and responsible children to become caring and responsible adults. And I think that's what most parents want more than them becoming a millionaire. I mean, they would say, I want my children to grow up to be caring and responsible adults. And here's a way to do it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm super excited that it's now going beyond parents saying that into colleges and things like that. My daughter is a sophomore. She's kind of looking into colleges now. Not kind of, she is excited about that. But I've heard over the past several years of colleges taking a real hard look at the character of their applicants instead of just looking at, here's my list of curricular, have you seen that trend too?
Oh, yes, definitely. There's much more emphasis on it. And there's a lot of research on it too, because I mean, everything that's related to bucket filling is, it's a proactive skill that you really do care about others. That makes the best bosses. That makes the best parents, grandparents, teachers, coaches, is that you're sort of a natural bucket filler. And so you build up. I mean, children are built from the bottom. So yes. And then when you teach that to a young adult, like your daughter in college, the importance of that and what have you done for others? And, they sort of look and say, well, what is that? So I think we are shifting, and I think that's really a good shift because, and there's nothing wrong with great academics. Don't misunderstand me. We all have our gifts in different ways.
Yeah.
But if we don't learn to treat people right, we won't be happy and we won't create a better world for everyone. So
Right.
yes,
Your
definitely.
Uncle Frank had it right.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah.
He had it right.
Parents, grandparents, and teachers are the biggest, and coaches are the biggest influences in our lives. And if they don't teach us, who will? Who will teach us? So an experience perhaps, and oftentimes it's a difficult experience that we learn how good it feels when someone was kind to us.
Yeah. So Nathan says the bucket is such a great tangible image for people of all ages. Thank you for your work on that. And I feel like that's true. Like it is great for kids, but this is great for all ages because I have to be able to say my bucket is empty. How am I going to get that filled again? Where am I going to be refreshed? And I can do that through other people.
Yeah, you can actually. When my bucket was empty, and whose bucket doesn't get empty when we get tired or don't feel well or things like that, I would actually warn the children in my class, Mrs. McCloud's bucket is really empty today. I really need to be good bucket fillers. And you know what? They were. They understood that. So they would say, can I get you a glass of water, Mrs. McCloud? Can I turn on the music? And truthfully, their behavior was better because they empathized with me, because we were actually building roads in their brain. And if you don't build that kindness road, who builds it? Right. And those, the brain is very plastic and we're learning more and more about it. But when we learn it earlier, it's better. It's better to learn kindness early. It's better to teach it earlier. And children learn with simplicity. So a little bucket with pom-poms or hearts and stars and a happy face, they can really get it. 2-year-olds. One little boy in Costco the other day said, my mommy and daddy, when I misbehave, they always pull out your bucket book. And actually, it was after we had talked for a while, And I was like, no, but he got it because, they were reminding him that, how we behave affects other people. And so it was, 2 years old, I couldn't believe it. It was like, wow, but they do. And when we give them activities to feel good and, it's kind of like now, we realize that going to school is a good thing. It's not that you have to go to school. It's that you get to go to school. And like, you have to be kind is the wrong message. Here's an opportunity and you will remember this. You remember those things that really deeply touched your soul. And we need more of them all the time. There's every opportunity every day. So, and there's levels of bucket filling that we will talk about, with kids, as I mentioned. And of course, there's always the dipping.
Oh, the dipper.
We talk about that too. Now, I didn't really talk about this when I taught preschool. I could have, but I really didn't want to focus on the negative. I only wanted to focus on the good things. But the truth is that we all have dippers too. You see, we have a choice. We can either fill someone's bucket with a little happiness, or we can actually say or do something that takes it away. And we don't always recognize that, but the other person feels the ouch. And that's what it is. It's an ouch. So it's a choice. So and sometimes kids don't realize it. And usually it happens either when we're seeking attention or we're having a really bad day, or we think it's funny, or we've had some bad examples on that it's okay to treat other people like this when it's really not. So it helps kids understand. And I don't like to, the dipper is actually our behavior. It's not the person. So I always am careful that I don't say that, or I don't even like to hear people say, well, he's a bucket dipper. No, we're not bucket dippers. We are all bucket fillers. But every once in a while, we do dip in people's buckets. We are not perfect. And it's going to happen, especially on those times where we're having a bad day or we're in a hurry. Everyone does it. And I teach this. Who doesn't do it? And usually, and I think I heard you say it when I was reading your book, the people we love the most are often the people whose buckets we dip in the deepest, or we can. So that is really, important thing to understand. So kindness is the most important. It is. But I also think that we need skills in learning how not to dip and how to deal with people who aren't nice. And we call that the lid on our bucket. I don't know if you know about that. It's not in the first book.
I do.
It's a little bit, But the lid is when someone dips in our bucket and we lose a couple hearts and stars or good thoughts and feelings, we can actually stop and think, I wonder what's wrong with him today. I wonder if he's having a bad day. I wonder if you think that's funny. I mean, and that actually helps us build resilience. And we have to do that. It is a skill that we develop over time. And we don't come with lids. We have to learn about our lids. And it's a process. And it still hurts. But if we can start to develop that, that is a social or an emotional intelligence skill that we need in life to deal with the difficulties of what's happening. So it protects our bucket while we're going through that till we sort of can figure it out. It's the rudeness and the meanness that sometimes happens.
We have a question from Sarah, and Sarah has 3 small children at home that she is schooling. I think she's doing 3rd grade, 1st grade, and maybe preschool school at home. And so she says, "Hi, Carol. Thank you for joining the podcast today. Question: what is your favorite bucket filling story for school age children during COVID?" So I think she's looking.
Well, I love the Wonder Books. I mean, I'm sure they know what the Wonder Books are. I mean, I just think that if you really want a good story that you can read together and it's for all ages, it's that book. So there's a whole series of books now, but that book really touches my heart, and it helps you understand, and develop empathy, because that also is developed. And so I just think it's a wonderful book to read together as a family. So, and it's just amazing. Of course, there's a movie now too, because we're such visual learners. But when you sit and read the book and you're by each other and you're spending time together, undistracted, I mean, that's a wonderful opportunity to be together.
Lots of buckets filled during that time.
For sure.
Andrea from Iowa says, "When your bucket feels empty, what ideas work for self-care, kindness?"
That's very important, because if your bucket isn't full, how are you going to fill other people's buckets? It takes an enormous, strong-willed person who can overcome that. And sometimes it can end up draining you if you actually don't know how to fill your own bucket. So the things that bring you joy, I mean, you actually should have a list of them. And actually, you should try to fill your bucket every day. I mean, it's as important as filling other people's buckets. And it's not selfish, it's self-care. And whatever that is, whether it's your exercise in the morning, listening to jazz, singing in the shower, having a great breakfast, talking to a friend, I mean, whatever that is, find the time to do it. Find the way, because you know what? We're adults and we can't depend on other people to fill our bucket. Children depend on it. Adults do not. We have to fill our own, and we can. And it is so important to know that. In fact, our growing up book, which is the chapter book, which is another good book to read to kids. This is what we're working on now, as we have just recently updated our chapter book, 88 pages, Growing Up with a Bucket Full of Happiness. 3 rules for a happier life. And it actually comes with a journal. So you can actually practice the happiness rules. And rule number 1 is be a bucket filler. Be kind, but be kind to others, but be kind to yourself. And you actually ask these questions every day for 30 days. So it's like, did I fill someone's bucket today? Did I fill my own bucket today? Did I dip in anyone's bucket today? Did I dip in my own bucket today with my own negative thinking, my negative self-talk? Did I have an opportunity to use my lid? Did I have a reason? Did something happen that was a little hard for me today? And then did I use my lid for others? In other words, the whole upstander, watching up for others, taking care, even brothers or sisters that obviously can fight and argue and have fusses and things. I mean, we can actually step in and say, hey, how about if I take you somewhere? You actually help resolve some of that happens in the best of families. Yeah. So those are ways you develop those skills. The rules are really, 3 skills for a happier life. And every subtitle of my book is about happiness, because kindness leads to happiness. And isn't that what we love about it?
It does. You led me into one of my final questions. I have 2 questions left. The first is, what are you working on now? So when is that book available? When can people?
That book, well, it's actually out now. This book we wrote 10 years ago, And so this is our 10th anniversary. I think you can kind of see it here, our 10th anniversary. So the book is out now, and we've just updated it a little bit because times have changed a little bit. So some of the vocabulary we use have changed, and we've made a little bit bigger pictures. It does have pictures in it because pictures say things that words can never say. So we've updated that. And so this book is out now. The new book will be out August 1st. And it really is basically the same book with just some updates that we felt would be good for 2020 as opposed to 2010. But this book is being used in schools along with this book so that everybody's learning, including the teacher. And that's what I love about bucket filling. It's not about just the kids. We all need to practice these ways of living, ways of thinking, because it will help us. And it helps us deal with things, and we learn a language that is kind of unique to our class. And we learn that we treat everybody with respect. And what's better than that? And you're learning that you don't have to take any time out from your already too busy school day. It's just part of who you are. Just a little reminder, as your sign is right there. Be kind, be a bucket filler.
Same within families.
It's a reminder. Yep.
You don't have to carve out time to teach your kids to be a bucket filler. You just start incorporating that language, and it works.
For sure.
So we've gone over the time. I'm so sorry. I told you.
That's all right.
After a half an hour, and but I have one last request, and that is, would you be willing to share your favorite or a favorite story of kindness? And I'm going to give you a second to think of one while we say hello to Jackie. Says hello, and Gretchen joined us. So hi, Gretchen. And I'm trying to see if there's anybody else we missed here. Jenny just says, great to hear the story behind the book that I've been using. Thank you for sharing your story. So that's all fun. But we've kept you over the time limit. So I would just love to hear about an act of kindness that's really resonated with you, Carol.
Gosh, it's so many, as you know. It didn't take you long to come up with your 100 stories, I'm sure. So, I mean, I've shared a couple of them, and I think that what I remember about when I was young with my Uncle Frank was, and my parents were very good bucket fillers, but, parents teach different things than adults. But when we would go to Chicago and visit him, and we would go out to breakfast, which of course you never do when you're one of 8 children in a big family. You don't go out to breakfast. And that was our life. I was one of 8 children. So we would go out to breakfast, which was very bucket filling for us because that was a unique experience. And then my grandfather would say to us, okay, look around in this cafe, because it was always breakfast, which was of course the least expensive meal. And he would say, and see if you notice anyone who looks a little sad or a little down. And my sister and I would look around the restaurant, and we would choose someone who we thought, and he would say, one person alone, we can't afford 2. And then we would look for a person. And he would say, okay, I want you to use your words and tell the server, who, of course, he taught us that we should know their name. So, that was respectful that you taught people. And we would say, you see that person over there? We'd like to pay for their breakfast today, but don't tell them it's us. And would you bring us the check? And he would have us use our words to say that. And then as soon as we did that, and we would say, can you get over to us without them knowing that it's us? And they would say, oh yeah, we'll do that. So, and then my sister Dawn and I, we would hide behind the menus like this, we'd be like, and then we wanted to see their faces because, I mean, this is like, I'm talking about the 1960s, and this is like a $1.50 breakfast, for everything, including coffee.
Yeah.
And that was like, he taught us. And, he used to do that every week, once a week. And he wasn't a rich person. He worked for the post office. He used to walk around. There was 100 cafes. And that was, and, my Uncle Frank, he never owned a house. He never owned a car. He was the happiest person I ever knew. And I thought of that story today when I was thinking about this session. And, recently, my husband and I were thinking that we needed a bigger house because I have too many books and I need more space.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? I thought about my Uncle Frank, and I was like, you know what? We don't need anything anymore. We have more than enough. And I really did. I said, it's not going to make us any happier. It really is just the little things that really make you happy. And I just thought about how he taught me that before I ever heard the word bucket filling. But then you experienced it. When I would get home to my mother and she'd say, well, tell me what you did in Chicago. And I was like, oh, Mom, we brought breakfast for this policeman or this older woman, and they couldn't figure it out. I mean, that's when, I mean, it's like it changes your brain. And when we teach kids whatever it is, it doesn't have to be that, it doesn't have to break your budget, but and my mom always taught me, always put a little money always in that little basket when it passes around church. And you know what? To this day, I give a portion of everything. It's just part of who you are because you were taught early in life that you share and you help people. And that
brag on you right now because you have committed to donating half of all of your company's profits.
We have. I mean, since day one, when, I wrote my first book and was actually really struggling, every single book, we donate a portion of our proceeds. So starting from day one. And then, when you give a little bit, it adds up. So just last year, I was like, I wonder how much that is that we've given, because every book, has a particular charity and we divide that up, and we've made it pretty easy now. But now it's like, you know what, we're doing good. And so if half of our earnings we can give away, and, why not? And truthfully, that is I love that bucket filling helps people. I love that it changes lives and it helps you be kinder. But I love that we also can do it too. And so it's like, I just was totally amazed. It's just that little bit. You just can't believe how much it adds up. And at least I can't, maybe others can, but it's like we reached that point. So it's actually pretty wonderful to be able to do that. And when you reach my point in life where a lot of people are retired, you know what? You don't need anything. You don't need more things. You just need to really look around and see how you can make things a little better. And what better feeling is that? And I truly owe it to other people who taught me. And I am so thankful that I've had those bucket fillers in my life, but we all can be bucket fillers. Just do your best. Don't be too hard on yourself. Dip in your own bucket and just, go out there and use your gifts. So,
Carol McCloud, you have filled my bucket. I'm so delighted right now. I'm going to be walking on a little cloud all day long because I got.
Well, thank you.
So,
well, your stories do that to me too, and Sandy. And every time I read that just one story, doesn't it just put a little harder star in your bucket? Yep, it does. So thank you, Nicole. You're doing wonderful work, and I'm just honored to have been invited. And thank you, audience, for listening. And
right. We love it. We love it so much that people would join us to listen in on this. So thank you, Carol. Have a really great day, and we'd love to have you on the Kindness Podcast.
Thank you. Bye for now. Love you.